The views expressed on the following broadcasts do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guest. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
One day at a time with its failures and fears, with portion of pain and burden of care, we must meet.
Welcome to Walking Through the Language of the Heart, a journey into the Grapevine writings of Alcoholics Anonymous co-founder Bill W. And now, here are your co-hosts, Chris S. and the Monty'man.
Welcome, family and friends, those of you who are in recovery, and maybe perhaps some of you should be. Welcome to another episode of Walking Through the Language of the Heart. Chris S. is on the phone. Welcome, Chris.
What's happening, Monty? How are you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm doing great. Hey, listen, I just wanted to pass on to you. Last week at my 12-step home group, I was approached by a young lady, and she said, "Oh my gosh," she said, "that last episode that you guys did on who is a member of Alcoholics Anonymous from the book, The Language of the Heart," she goes, where have I been? She said, I can't believe I waited this long to tune into your shows. She goes, it just opened up so many doors for me. I'm so appreciative, and I wanted to pass it on to you, Chris. That's awesome.
That's funny. Listen, I was at a meeting a couple of Saturdays ago where somebody came running up and said kind of the same thing to me. So it just kind of makes me feel good to know that people are getting some value out of it.
Yeah.
That makes me feel good.
It does. It does indeed. All right. For those of you who may have never joined us before, we are going through this wonderful book called The Language of the Heart. And this is Bill W.'s Grapevine writings from 1944 to 1970 that he submitted to the Grapevine magazine, if you will, what is affectionately known to many AA members as their meeting in print. And we've been going through each one of these articles that he has written. Which one are we doing this week?
All right, Monty, we are in January 1947. We've moved from 1946 to 1947.
Yay.
And the title of this one it's on page 40 of The Language of the Heart. It's called, Will AA Ever Have a Personal Government? That's language you don't hear in the conference approved literature.
No,
you don't hear about government very much.
No.
So this is going to be interesting. Again, these are the early musings and the early iterations of what would become, fundamental principles and best practices in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm really having an experience with some of this stuff. Some of the writing, some of the writing is extraordinary. I've grown to really love Bill Wilson's writing.
He is a wordsmith. He's God's man, and I am so thankful for him. And the more that one of the things that we've told the listeners in previous shows is we're not reading ahead. We're reading as we go. And that makes it exciting for me because we don't have a disposed attitude towards it. We're just reading it with the listeners listening.
That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. So what do you say we get started?
Let's do it.
All right. Will AA ever have a personal government? January 1947. Bill says the answer to this question is almost surely no. That is the clear verdict of our experience. I was thinking when I was looking at this title before the show, I was thinking that how extraordinary is it for Bill Wilson to come up with these really, really unorthodox, really outside ideas of how to put an organization together when he's a self-admitted, want to be the top man kind of a guy. When he went to Akron and met Dr. Bob, he was going there to try to take over a tire company and become president. So that same person is putting together procedures for us to adopt that will, that go against any kind of leadership, any kind of, mandatory procedures, Yeah. And I just think it's extraordinary. He must have really had a recovery experience to have gone from, I need to be the top guy, to let's put an organization together that doesn't have any top guys.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's upside down and backwards to what you would think he would do.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. To begin with, each AA has been an individual who, because of his alcoholism, could seldom govern himself. Remember, Monty, we have to admit that our lives are unmanageable. So our lives are not hard to manage. They're unmanageable.
Yeah.
So let me describe it like this. Something that would be hard to manage is, let's say you got 10 acres of grass and you got a push mower. Okay? It would be hard for you to manage cutting the lawn, right?
Right.
But you could probably struggle through it, maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
What if being unmanageable wouldn't be not having a lawnmower?
Right.
So when he says could seldom govern ourselves, he means it, because he understands just how much of a mess we've made out of our lives. He says, nor could any other human being govern the alcoholic's obsession to drink, his drive to have things his own way.
Yeah.
Monty, I was on a 12-step call about an hour ago.
Oh, boy.
And no, this person was lovely. And and I gave my pitch and my offer of help and everything. But I could see in their eyes that I didn't have any power over whether they're going to continue to drink again.
Sure.
And I'm not going to have any power over whether they continue to want to have things their own way. I mean, my parting words to them was, please take action. Take action that you don't think will work for you, and take action that you think is stupid. Because we all felt that way when we were asked to do this stuff.
Yeah.
But please take action, So anyway, it says, time out of mind, families, friends, employers, doctors, clergy, and judges have tried their hand at disciplining alcoholics. Monty, the prisons are filled. Probably more than 50% of the prisoners in jails today and institutions are people that have done things under the influence.
Yep. Yep.
So how's that disciplining going?
Not well.
We've got the largest prison population per capita of any country on the planet. It's not going real well.
It's like we've turned over the job of treatment, for lack of a better term, over to the Department of Corrections.
Yeah, and how's that work?
Not well.
It's certainly not working well. Almost without exception, the failure to accomplish anything by coercion has been complete. Yet we alcoholics can be led, we can be inspired. Coming into AA, we can, and we will gladly do, yield to the will of God. Hence, it is not strange that the only real authority to be found in AA is that of spiritual principles. It is never personal authority. Wow, that is so powerful. I'm gonna read that again. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It says alcoholics can be led, we can be inspired, coming into AA, and we will gladly do, yield to the will of God. that's what you and I did.
Yeah.
And we probably did that before we even knew that's what we were doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hence, it is not strange that the only real authority to be found in AA is that of spiritual principles. It's never personal authority. So, Monty, we don't live by advice. We live by spiritual principles.
Amen.
You can go into a meeting and you can say, hey, the IRS is auditing me. I think they're on to the $10,000 I owe them. What do you think I should do? And there'll be 20 people that'll tell you what to do, and every one of them will be different, right?
Right.
So we can't really live by advice. We need to live by the spiritual principles.
Yeah.
So it's never personal authority. It's God authority, and that's something that I hope never changes in Alcoholics Anonymous.
One of my co-hosts that was a co-host here for many years, Marv, he used to say, when he was talking about people giving advice in the meetings, he would say, you can't legislate morality. Because people would try to do that with each other, during the meetings, and it doesn't work.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. So our unreasonable individualism, what a great way to put it. Monty, we were unreasoning individualism people. Egocentricity, if you like, was, of course, the main reason we all failed in life and betook ourselves to alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that too. I betook myself to alcohol, Monty. You sure do know, because I felt like I was failing in life, and that was because of my unreasonable individualism.
Yes. Yes. And
man.
Yeah.
Man, that's wonderful.
Bottom line is you're not doing things the way I want you to do. So you know what? I'm going to go get drunk.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So it says, when we couldn't coerce others into conformity with our own plans and desires, we drank.
Yeah.
When others tried to coerce us, we also drank. Though now sober, we still have a strong hangover of these early traits which caused us to resist authority. Therein probably hangs a clue to our lack of personal government in AA. No fees, no dues, no rules and regulations, no demand that the alcoholic conform to AA principles, no one set in personal authority over anyone else. Though no sterling virtue, our aversion to obedience does pretty well guarantee us freedom from personal domination of any kind. Monty, if someone elected themselves president of your group, would you listen to them?
No. Absolutely not.
That's because of our unreasonable individualism.
Oh man,
Bill really had something going on, didn't he?
Yeah, it's amazing that it works out so well. I mean, if somebody says I'm in charge and we say no, you're not, they can't say they're in charge. We can't say no, you're not, but we both just did. And yet, it works out.
It does. It does.
It blows my mind.
Still, it is a fact that most of us do follow in our personal lives the 12 suggested steps to recovery. Mm-hmm. If we want to survive, we do.
Yeah.
But we do this from choice. We prefer recovery to death.
Yeah, I hope so.
Then, little by little, we perceive that the spiritual basis of life is the best. We conform because we want to. This is the conversation I was having with this individual an hour ago. I was basically saying, my experience with recovery is I would not want it any other way these days. I was explaining to the person, I said to him this, and I don't know if they understood or not, but I said, I believe alcoholism is a toxic experience of self-consciousness. We are so self-conscious. We're resentful. We have self-pity. We have depression. We have guilt and shame, and we really don't feel like we fit in, and we're uncomfortable with ourselves, and we're uncomfortable with situations.
Yeah.
And recovery is the opposite of all of that. And so today, I'm incredibly grateful to have recovered. In the early days, I just didn't know what was going on. But I come back here and I sit with you tonight to tell you that this is a better way of life and you can do it. And this is what Bill is talking about here, I'm sure.
Yeah. That's good news. That's good news, man. And not always is a person actually hearing that.
Well, I don't know if they heard it or not. You know how we are. We're going to nod, with a smile.
That's right.
And while we're thinking, I can't wait for this lunkhead to be done.
To get out of here. Yeah.
But who knows? Who knows? We're not in charge of the outcome, Monty. We're in charge of the action.
That's right.
Likewise, most AA groups become willing to follow the 12 points of tradition to assure our future. And that's what he was calling the 12 traditions at that time, the 12 points of tradition to assure our future. The groups are willing to avoid controversy over outside issues such as politics, reform, or religion. They stick to their single purpose of helping alcoholics to recover. They increasingly rely on self-support rather than outside charity. The outside issue things, he's talking about the outside issue, and that's so important. If you're a group member in one of my groups, you're not going to know if I'm Democratic or Republican or independent. You're not going to know if I'm Methodist, Presbyterian, or atheist. Well, you probably would know I'm not atheist.
Right.
But do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you bet.
And I think that's really good because we need to be in the lifeboat together,
That's right.
More and more do they insist on modesty and anonymity in their public relations. The AA groups follow these other traditional principles for the very same reason that the individual AA follows the 12 steps to recovery. Groups see they would disintegrate if they didn't, and they soon discovered that adherence to our 12 tradition and experience is the foundation for a happier and more effective group life. So he's saying what the steps have done for us and the spiritual principles have done for us. These 12 suggested points of tradition to assure our future do the same thing within the group ecology.
Mm-hmm.
That is really true, I believe. Nowhere in AA is there to be seen any constituted human authority that can compel an AA group to do anything. Some AA groups, for example, elect their leaders. But even with such a mandate, each leader soon discovers that while he can always guide by example or persuasion, he can never boss. Else at election time, he might find himself passed by. The majority of AA groups do not even choose leaders. They prefer rotating committees to handle their simple affairs. These committees are invariably regarded as servants. They have only the authorization to serve, never to command. So in here in 1947, he's talking about the principle of rotation, the spiritual principle of rotation that we found so incredibly valuable, especially as you move into the concepts. Each committee carries out what it believes to be the wishes of the group. That is all. Though AA committees used to try to discipline wayward members, though they have sometimes composed minute rules and regulations, and now and then have set themselves up as judges of other people's personal morals, I know of no case where any of these seemingly worthy strivings had any lasting effect, except perhaps the election of a brand new committee.
And that happens.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And isn't that true?
Yes.
Isn't that true? Early on, Monty, I got involved in general service. I became a GSR and then a committee member in the different committees and stuff. And there was basically one guy who wanted to run the whole show, who had guidance for everybody, who had, he would very kindly, let you know why you're thinking why you're doing it wrong. And he ended up with a dark district. In other words, everyone just walked away. They just walked away, and he was sitting there by himself, wondering why no one had a service ethic anymore. Yeah. well, it was basically because you have control issues, and,
right.
And if you have control issues, the last place you should be is in service.
Yeah.
Know what I mean? Anyway, because controlling is not serving.
No.
Surely I can make these assertions with the greatest of confidence, for I, in my own turn too, have tried a hand at governing AA. Each time I have strenuously tried it, I've been shouted down so loudly, in fact, that on several occasions it looked as though I was due for a swift and certain excommunication. And that's true. In some of the very, very early meetings, he would come up with ideas like I'm gonna become a paid missionary, for Charlie Towns at his hospital.
Right.
And they freaked out on him.
Yeah.
You can't do this. This is for fun and for free, Bill. And he saw that, these people are right. The group conscience is right. This work is for fun and for free.
Mm.
Sitting at a desk in our central office, I often watch the incoming floods of personal, group, and intergroup problems as they flow in. We've talked about that in some of the earlier meetings. He had access to so much of what was going on in other groups. The tide has been rising so fast of late that each morning's mail brings us an avalanche, invariably containing at least one very critical problem from someplace or other in the world. The AA central office has become a hotspot, so hot indeed that a crisis a day is getting to be routine. Once upon a time, my temptation was to take a strong position on every one of these problems, to exert every bit of pressure and authority that I could bring to bear, to write hot letters telling erring groups or individuals where to head in. At such moments, I used to be convinced that AA needed a strong personal government, someone, for example, like myself.
There it
What
is.
humility to admit this.
Yeah, right.
After struggling a few years to run the AA movement, I had to give it up. It simply didn't work. Heavy-handed assertion of my personal authority always created confusion and resistance. If I took sides in a controversy, I was joyfully quoted by some, while others murmured, "And just who does this dictator think he is?" If I sharply criticized, I usually got double criticism on the return bounce. Personal power always failed. I can see my older AA's friends smiling. They are recalling those times when they too felt a mighty call to save the AA movement from something or other. But their days of playing Pharisee are now over. So those little maxims, easy does it, and live and let live, have come to be deeply meaningful and significant to them and to me. In such fashion, each of us learns that in AA, one can be a servant only. This might be the first place easy does it or live and let live comes into print, Monty. This was prior to us seeing it in the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions.
Now, some of the other platitudes that we see are commonly seen in posters on the walls don't even come from AA, do they? Don't they come from like Al-Anon and IBM?
Well, one example I could give you is think, think, think.
Right.
The upside down, think, think, think.
Yeah.
All right. What happened was someone was working for IBM, the computer company, and had a service commitment stuffing envelopes in New York. They've always had a lot of volunteers, right? And they were sending out like a group, AA announcement or something. And this person was stuck with hundreds of extra think, small posters. And they thought, you know what? These are kind of cool. Think. I'm going to stuff these in the envelopes. And all of a sudden, everybody thought, oh, this is a new AA slogan. Think. And, you got to be careful with some of these one-liners.
Right.
You know
right.
what I mean?
And that is why in some places you will, in fact, we have it in the office section of our studio. We have those popular black, red, and white posters up, and think is upside down because of that story. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I know. It's so much fun. I love that story. It's great.
Here at the central office, and Bill always, had a desk at the central office, we have long known that we can merely supply certain indispensable services. We can supply information and literature. We can usually tell how the majority of AAs feel about our current problems. We can assist new groups to start, giving advice if asked. We can look after the overall AA public relations. We can sometimes mediate difficulties. Similarly, the editors of our monthly journal, the AA Grapevine, believe themselves simply a mirror of current AA life and thought. So that's what Bill Wilson would always describe the Grapevine as a mirror of Alcoholics Anonymous. Serving purely as such, they cannot rule or propagandize. So also the trustees of the Alcoholic Foundation, our AA General Service, know themselves to be simple custodians who guarantee the effectiveness of the AA Central Office and the AA Grapevine, and who are the repository of our general funds and traditions. Caretakers only.
Wow.
Now, you know as well as I do, Monty, that people are fallible, right?
Sure.
And sometimes they're going to get off track. And I think there's been periods of time in the last 20 years or so where some people in the central office have gotten off track. I mean, they've instigated lawsuits. They've mismanaged convention funds. They grossly underestimated the Zoom costs and offered, every group in the country a free Zoom account, and then they got the bill for $60,000.
Oh my gosh.
Whoa. I mean, so there's mistakes that get made, but what I've seen is I've seen them get off track, and then I've seen them get back on track.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I've stopped being harshly critical of the New York General Service, although there's been periods of time in the past where I have been. I come to see it, I come to see the long game a little bit more. And as these trusted servants rotate in and out, the problems seem to fix themselves.
Don't you think that as we, as individual people in recovery, kind of ride a roller coaster of spiritual growth and maturity, that the groups do too, and the GSRs do, and the areas and districts do, all the way up to the General Service Office? I mean, our growth and maturity as people in recovery, it keeps going all across the board. I mean, when I got into service in my particular 12-step fellowship, I had to learn all over again a lot of stuff, that I thought, well, I've done the 12 steps. I'm kind of here. Now I'm doing this. I didn't realize that I had a whole nother roller coaster of emotions and things to experience. I think that is what happens at servant level as well, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I think we sometimes learn through mistakes.
Yeah.
And I know that I have.
Yeah, I've
learned from a lot of my mistakes, but mistakes. I've even started to see them as something that may not be all that bad.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Well, Chris, where it says and I know this is a little out of context, but we don't wish to shut the door on our past. We don't regret it, and we don't wish to shut the door on it. I look at that with at all my mistakes as well. I don't regret them, and I don't shut the door on them, because they really are golden opportunities to continue in my growth.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. It is most clearly apparent that even here at the very center of AA, there can only exist the center of service, custodians, editors, secretaries, and the like, each, to be sure, with a special vital function, but none of them with any authority to govern Alcoholics Anonymous. that such centers of service, international, national, metropolitan area, or local, will be sufficient for the future, I can have no doubt. So long as we avoid any menacing accumulation of wealth or the growth of personal government at these centers, we cannot go astray. While wealth and authority lie at the foundation of many a noble institution, we of AA now apprehend and thoroughly well that these things are not for us. Have we not found that one man's meat is often another man's poison? Shall we not do well if instead we can cling in some part to the brotherly ideals of the early Franciscans? Now, he's just getting involved. With Father Ed Dowland around this time. Okay.
Okay.
So, as the 12 steps and 12 traditions are written, you start to hear a lot of Catholicism, a lot of Catholic terminology start to enter, and some of the processes start to enter into to our spiritual literature, and that's kind of to be expected. He considered Father Ed Dowling like one of his sponsors.
Yes.
So let all of us AAs, whether we be trustees, editors, secretaries, janitors, or cooks, or just members, ever recall the unimportance of wealth and authority as compared with the vast import of our brotherhood, love, and service. That is really cool. That is really cool.
Wow. The insight that he has, the way he can look into the future, once again, it's just evidence to me that God's hand was in it all. And what a gift. What a gift to be a wordsmith like Bill was. And we're so fortunate to have his literature in print, aren't we? I
think so.
Yeah.
I really think so. This has really, really been a really good a good piece of writing, don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, how many meeting topics could you get out of this?
Oh, Lordy. I'm gonna put a plug in here. I'm not gonna say the name of them or anything, but I have a home group that I attend, and it is so comforting, and it is so welcoming, and it seemed I've been to meetings. I was at a home group for a long time where it just seemed like it was such a struggle. There was politics and toxicity and control and just all that stuff. And yet that group still goes pretty strong. And so that's proof right there that despite our character defects, God continues in it. But it is so comforting to be in a group that when you sit down, it just feels like home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
And gosh, I don't know. The older I get, the more I appreciate that.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, my friend, this was a little shorter one than usual, but powerful nonetheless. And
absolutely. I think so.
Yeah.
I think the text speaks for itself.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah. So, will AA ever have a personal government? The answer to this question is almost surely no. That's in the first sentence of the article. No.
We don't quit it. We don't quit. We don't form something else.
Yeah, right. And people have, by the way. Bless their hearts. Well, next week, the article is Dangers in Linking AA to Other Projects. Gosh, I am tempted to read this, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to hold back, and we'll read it next week. Dangers in Linking AA to Other Projects. Eesh. That should be very interesting.
That's going to be a good one. That'll be a good one.
Yeah. Well, my friend, thank you so much again for sharing your time with us and committing to do this large project.
This has been really, it's been way better than I even expected it to be, Monty.
Well,
I'm really enjoying this.
Thank you. We love it. All right, my friends, listen, if you want to go back and listen to the previous topics, we have a dedicated webpage on our website for this. Visit us at take12radio.com, click on the Recovery Workshops banner, and there you'll find the link to Walking Through the Language of the heart, along with other workshops that we've done with Chris S. as well. Until our next broadcast, this is the Monty'man along with Chris, and we are wishing God's perfect serenity for you. For more recovery workshops with Chris S. and the Monty'man, visit our website at take12radio.com and click on the Recovery Workshops banner.
This has been a broadcast of Take 12 Recovery Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
Kitty, 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 kitty. Meow, meow, meow.
Woof, woof.